So I believe everything always happens for a reason, and in the end, it was me. And so my role going into the public order emergency inquiry was as a solicitor. So we don't usually make those distinctions in Canadian law, but because Keith and I were very involved, obviously, in the whole protest itself and giving legal advice at the time. Well, and Keith ended up being a witness, so I wasn't sure if I would be, because talking about the process, it was really just all last minute. That what we went through, nobody should go through with the kind of pressure and a role we had. Of course, being a government lawyer, it was very different. But so our Keith and my role going into the public order emergency inquiry was as solicitor. So like background, getting information, and the litigators on the file were Brendan Miller and Bathsheba Vandenberg. And so they were the ones that had the task of the cross-examinations and motions and things before the commission. None of us expected it to be that intense and crazy, and continuously getting last-minute documents and trying to get unredacted documents so that we could actually do proper cross-examination, and the timelines. Like, one thing just to talk about, you don't cross-examine a witness in 10 minutes. That's not a cross-examination. This was theater, really, because you normally have half a day to cross-examine, hours to cross-examine, a full day to cross-examine. And one thing, just going back to Peter Slowly, this is where I can, even as a lawyer, say that I was very distraught of how the process ran. Is it was about whether or not the federal government was justified in invoking the Emergencies Act. The only person they had give evidence for 2 days was former Chief of Police Peter Slowly, who has had nothing to do to whether or not the Emergencies Act was invoked. That was not his decision. So why wasn't RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki on the stand for 2 days, or Prime Minister Trudeau? So when you just look at that one fact, that was not meant to be a process to really dig in and figure out what that was about, and then everything else that we had to deal with on a procedural level. So Brendan Miller did a fantastic job with the evidentiary record. Like, all of the witnesses from at least police authorities, none of them said that they needed or requested the Emergencies Act. What more do you need? And then we dug into it more with that, but that evidence was clear on the record. Then we have Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to cross-examine, and it was a request of the clients to talk more from the voice of Canadians. And so I was asked, and I was very obviously pleased and humbled to do the questions in that way, because I felt I could bring that voice on behalf of Canadians. I was so involved and close to everything, so I had seen it all. I was familiar with it, and it was at like basically 10:30 the night before that we made that decision, and it was time.
So did you sleep? Like, are you just laying in bed going like, okay, can I say that word? Like, can I call him an asshole, or do I just like what's that like? Like, I mean, so it's 10:30 at night. You're alone, and you're like, I have to come up with a plan of attack.
Well, we were working on it as a team, so I wasn't alone, and we
Gotcha.
we're working together on questions. And throughout the inquiry, and before, like I said, my role was as a solicitor. So one of the things I had kind of decided to do is try to get stories and recollections of people, why they supported it in Ottawa and outside, because again, we didn't know what this process would be like. And we had put forward at least 25 names of witnesses that we wanted to be cross-examined, including at least 10 on Ottawa residents. Right. And so I was gathering all these stories, and like, as people are giving evidence, I'm reading these stories, like my heart is breaking, some of these things. And I didn't know if when those stories would ever be heard, if they would be heard. So one of my thoughts was the whole inquiry is that would be so great to put to the Prime Minister, the voices of all these people I've been reading their like recollections of. And so that was part of it. And of course, we wanted to ask about the agreement a bit and what his decision was. And so we were working on it as a team, but that's like, and you nailed it right from the beginning, is we knew the moment he would have an opportunity, he would just political talking points, why everything was perfect and why he's the best prime minister. We knew he wouldn't get any answers. We wouldn't get any evidence from the Prime Minister of Canada. So we made it about the questions and putting it to him what he wouldn't hear.
Right.
The reasons people, the voice of Canadians, like you said, that opportunity that he could have had. Well, I guess if we think about it now, I took that opportunity to step up where he didn't.
Yeah, I thought the impact statements were brilliant. I thought because here you are, a lawyer cross-examining the prime minister. You could have just asked him a line of questions and have him dance around it and play the cat and mouse game. But you actually forced him to listen to Canadians, which was, I just thought it was brilliant, because he, for the first time ever, had nowhere to run. He had to hear from people the consequences of his actions. And I think I honestly, I rewatched it today because I just kind of wanted to see it again. And in that moment, you can kind of see a small glimmer of something resembling remorse, right? Like, and then when he answers and he goes, well, it was deeply, he wasn't touched, but the real person that's deep down inside of him, you could kind of see a little bit that it was still there, and that it was connecting to that, with Justin Trudeau, I don't think, because he's been so isolated his whole life, he's a Laurentian elite, right? Like, he's Pierre Trudeau's son. Like, he's never existed in the real world. He's able to do the things that he does because there is a wide gap between him and everybody else. There's a big disconnect. So like, when he brings in carbon taxes and average people can't fill up their car to drive to work anymore, or they can't afford to buy groceries, he can go on TV and rhetoric, right? But he doesn't actually have a connection to it because he's not them, right? Yes. And he never has been, and he never will be. So when people are saying, I can't afford to buy milk anymore, it doesn't register to him because he has never been in that position. He's never even been remotely close to it.